one question: EUDAMED, how bad can it be? I'm going to answer that question at the end, and what I'm going to do at the very end is I'm actually going to show you what our version of the input form looks like for adding a UDIDI, just to give you a flavor of what's there. First of all, apparently my slides contain lots of acronyms. The Medical Device Writers Association insisted that I add this slide explaining all the acronyms so that people could figure out what I was actually talking about. You don't need to read them. You don't need to write them down. Carl can provide you with all the slides afterwards. So first of all, the important bits. I've 25 plus years in IT, 8 years of that were within the European Commission, first on EUDAMED 2, and then I took over as the technical IT manager for the creation of MDR EUDAMED, as they like to call it, or EUDAMED 3, as everybody else likes to call it. Because of my background in IT, I was heavily involved in the design, in the development. While not coding directly myself, I guided it quite strongly, and the implementations as well. We set up Eudamed.eu initially to help with software and consultancy, but because of decisions that the Commission made, we ended up getting involved in support and training. The support the Commission are going to provide you. We had a meeting in January 2019, and in there, they were discussing what level of support is going to be given. For the competent authorities, there's unlimited support. These guys call, the Commission answers. For notified bodies, manufacturers, system procedure pack producers, importers, everybody else, there is support, but very, very limited. And the limitation on the support is they were going to have a couple of people behind a functional mailbox. They were going to have no ticketing system. And we're estimating, or we did estimate, that there was going to be 80,000 plus companies, equating to approximately 320,000 users, all going to need help. Everybody's going to need some level of assistance along the way, but there's going to be 2 people behind a functional mailbox. And every time you email that functional mailbox, it's going to get copied. They have to copy it on the response, etc. When I took over Eudamed 2, the response time was 3 weeks. And then the response was, we have received your email. When I left the Commission in 2019, we were confronted with lots of companies calling me and saying, hey, you know, we need to know about Eudamed. And I was thinking, fantastic, sure. The Commission had led us to believe that everybody knew everything about Eudamed. Unfortunately, when I started talking about Eudamed, most of these people who went over their head, they had no idea. They didn't really understand what Eudamed was. They thought it was going to be similar to the FDA. You know, that one line in the spreadsheet that contains your entire device? That's not the case with Eudamed. Eudamed, we produce templates, and the templates have 20 tabs because there's so many sections within the system that have data that might repeat or multiple entries. Now, MDR EUDAMED was needed because, first of all, Eudamed 2, it's functional, it works. Eudamed originally started with DIMD in Germany, and then the Commission took it in as Eudamed 1, then the directives came in, Eudamed 2 came out of that, and now the regulations, Eudamed 3. But Eudamed 2 only had the competent authorities and the Commission as people who could access it. All your data went from the notified bodies, from the manufacturers to the competent authority, and they uploaded it. Far greater scope in MDR, far more requirements, far more mandatory fields. So there's a lot more data. But one of the biggest parts of the regulations and of the new EUDAMED is the public availability. Every single thing you add as a device is public. Your vigilance and your clinical investigations, they won't be publicly available. Bits of them will, summaries will, but not everything. So there's huge transparency involved in this. And for statistics, from a nerdy point of view, once this thing is up and running and once all the data is in there, it is going to be fantastic for statistics. The level of information and trends, etc., in the marketplace is going to be absolutely incredible. So we all know the legislation was adopted in 2017, and there was this 3-year window for everybody to get ready, and everybody expected it all to be ready. And we were supposed to go live March 2020. When I left the Commission in April 2019, everything was on time. The commissioner even said in the August, everything is on time, but he mentioned the core modules, and the core modules, actors, devices, certificates, and part of vigilance. So he had already cut it down a bit. That was expected to go live in the March. But then around the September time, the new college came in, the new commission. And one of the problems with the commission is that when they create a new one, they like to move things around a bit. They like to mix it up just to show everybody that, you know, we have such control over this. So yet again, they moved medical devices across the road. There's two buildings. One is DG, what's it called now? DG Sante, and the other is DG Grow. It used to be DG Sanko and DG Enterprise, but they're across the road from each other. When I joined in 2011, it had moved from Sanko to Enterprise, which became Grow. Then 4 years later, it goes back, and then it goes back again. And it's this ping pong back and forth. And normally it doesn't make a big difference because it's only the business team, you know, 3, 4, 5 people that have to move across the road and swap tables and get new windows with good views. But this time was different because of EUDAMED. When I left in 2019, there was 23 people on the team. And we had some fabulous people involved in the data exchange side, some really talented people. And the problem was that some of these used to work for DG Sante, which, for those who don't know what a DG is, it's like a directorate, a ministry, a giant department. I think there's over 1,000 people in DG Sante. But a few of these people used to work there, and they said, well, we don't want to go back again. Now, physically, they didn't have to go anywhere. They're in an outsourced building across the road again, lots of roads in Brussels. And they wouldn't physically have had to go anywhere, but they decided, no way, we're not going back. So it put a huge hole in everything. So it was around then that the commission realized that they were in a bit of trouble. So they decided to delay it. Initially, I thought the delay would be maybe 3-6 months, but for the fully functional EUDAMED, they actually delayed it right up to the IVDR date of application to the 26th of May, 2022. And the legislation or the regulations say that it's legally binding once it's fully functional. But watch this space, because they can issue implementing acts, and the implementing acts can adjust the regulation. And it is very possible, and I did hear discussions about it when I was there, that they could issue an implementing act that makes the core modules the fully functional EUDAMED. So if in 2022, the vigilance and the clinical investigations aren't ready, or the clinical investigations and the post-market surveillance, if they're not ready, it's very possible an implementing act could come along, and then it's mandatory. Then you have to use it. So we go on. The registration, system procedure pack producers, importers, manufacturers, EU authorized representatives, they all have to register in EUDAMED. But because they've pushed the release, thankfully, the commission are also doing these phased releases. So the first module, it was ready. It was ready for a long time, but they released it. So everybody can register, except, funnily enough, the Swiss and the Turkish. Your mutual recognition agreements have lapsed, and there's big discussions going on. You guys can't even get an authorized representative at the moment because Switzerland doesn't appear in the list of countries that can register. Now, the information that I'm hearing is that nothing is going to be signed before the 26th of May, 2021, in however many weeks' time, 5-6 weeks' time. So in that case, you guys will effectively become a third country. It might only be for a year or two, but it is going to cause you issues because you're going to have to get an authorized representative. The importer role also changes. The normal importer, the fiscal importer, the physical importer, they remain. You pay your VAT, you carry the boxes in. But now you have this compliance importer side of things as well, just to make things more complicated. There is some specialist companies that are doing this, and if you want to talk about any of these things, just give me a shout after. But you guys are going to need your authorized rep. You're going to need to have an importer, all based within Europe. And then depending which competent authority you'd like to deal with, that also determines your authorized rep location. Because wherever your authorized rep is located, that is where your competent authority is going to be. So you're going to be dealing with Swiss Medic for Switzerland, and then you're going to be dealing with DUDEMED, the HPRA in Ireland, or whatever country you choose. But you could end up having to have multiple registrations. If your company is going to register everything themselves, if you're going to be your own importer, your own authorized rep, and your own manufacturer, obviously, then you've got 3 registrations, all separate SRNs. So just be aware of that. Now, one of the big arguments that happened during the whole process was to do with the legacy devices. The legacy devices are your directive devices, the ones that are under your, geez, I can't even remember the numbers now, your IVDDs, your MDDs, and AIMDDs. So initially, the Commission didn't expect the legacy devices in EUDAMED. It was all about the regulations, the regulatory devices. We were never getting these legacy devices in. And the IT team were more than happy. Keep them out. The data in EUDAMED 2 was not fantastic, so why bring it in? So I keep looking down, looking at my timer just to make sure I'm on time, by the way. So there was a lot of back and forth, and the Commission kept pushing back on, no, we don't want these. The IT team were oblivious, and we were continuing with our UDIDI as the key of the database, etc. Then all of a sudden, the member states and the MDCG put their feet down, and they said, right, you will take legacy devices. You will take legacy devices, and they will have to be uploaded under certain circumstances. First of all, if the device goes on the market for the first time after EUDAMED is fully functional. And again, this fully functional piece comes up. So just remember, this could have an effect with the implementing acts next year if everything's not there. So the first time it goes on the market within Europe, obviously, after EUDAMED is fully functional, then you have to put this directive device in. The other time you have to put it in is if there's a vigilance issue, because you cannot report vigilance through EUDAMED unless the device is already there. So you have to have the device data to hand. If you have a serious incident, you've got 2 days to get this data in. So whatever you're doing with your MDR data, make sure as well that you're prepared with the legacy device data. Just make sure that you have everything ready. Now, to speed up a little bit, because of the problem with the key of the database, the UDIDI, and because some devices, some of the legacy devices already have UDIDIs and some don't, we had to play around a bit and come up with some inventive ideas. And for the devices that already have the UDIDI, what we did is, because there's no concept of a basic UDI either in legacy devices, we still had to create a basic UDI. So what we did was, for a basic UDI, we put a B- in front of the existing UDIDI and set EUDAMED as the issuing entity. And then for the actual UDIDI, we place a D- in front of the real UDIDI and whoever the real issuing entity is. That's fine. That kind of takes care of it. And this allows you to use the same UDIDI then when you're going to recertify onto the regulations and get everything uploaded that way. So that covers you if you already have it. But the biggest problem came if you didn't have the UDIDI, because you still can't get into EUDAMED without a UDIDI. That's a given. So we had to come up with this idea to generate a fake one. The Commission don't like to call it a fake one. They call it an EUDAMED ID and an EUDAMED DI, but they're fake ones because they're used nowhere else. It's just to get your device into EUDAMED. In February, they finally issued the algorithms to create these numbers, to create these UDIDIs, the fake ones. And they're based on the GS1 algorithm, but there's a bit of maths and a bit of calculations involved in it. And for the majority of companies, it's a pain in the ass. You don't need to do this. So what we did is we actually created a spreadsheet where you would type in your SRN, you type in your product code, and we'll generate them for you. What just happened there? Oh, there, sorry. Everything disappeared for a split second. Okay, I'm back. I'm hoping Carl will shout at me if everything disappears completely. So in this spreadsheet, and this is something that we give away free, it's the only thing I'm ever going to give away free, guaranteed. But what you do, if I can get this working, here we go. You enter your SRN, you type in your product codes, 8 characters, you hit the generate button, and this will generate a list of them. It's similar to the things you get with GS1 or the other issuing entities. But in here, you can put in hundreds of these things, you hit the generate button, and it will generate them out. And as you can see, you get your B-, it takes your SRN, it takes your product code, and then it generates a couple of checksum characters at the end. And you can use these immediately in your stuff, because if you're uploading XML, you're going to have to use generated ones. If you're entering lots of them into the legacy device forms, you're given an option. Do you already have a UDIDI? Then it generates the fake for you. Do you already have a generated Eudamed DI and ID, etc.? And then you can put in these. But even if you are creating your own IT system, you can still take our spreadsheet and use it to check your calculations. It's a double check for yourselves, but that's free. You can take that as and when. Next thing, nomenclature. I'm very quickly across this one. The EMDN was the GMDN code was the one that we all knew and we were all relatively happy with. It was existing, it was working, everybody was going good with it. But the regulations were very, very clear. The nomenclature code had to be given free of charge to the medical device industry. I've seen stuff online where the commissioner being accused of, oh, they decided they wanted to invent something new. They went off on a solo run and just ignored the industry's wishes. No, they didn't. It's probably the only time I'm going to stick up for the commission on this. The commission spoke to the GMDN agency at length. There was many, many meetings, and the agency from their cottage in England were very, very clear. We get paid for our codes. Eventually, the MDCG and the commission, they had to make a call. The ship can't, or the train can't stop just because one part is causing an issue. So they had to find something new. So they did some searching and they found the CND in Italy. They found that it was the best of what was available, best of the best. And they decided to run with that. And then the Italians went through a whole mapping exercise between the GMDN codes to the CND. Now, one word of warning. I don't know if the commission have actually published this or not, but this is what my understanding is. If your GMDN code maps, we'll say to level 3 of the EMDN code, but there's 7 levels. You have to pick from the lowest level. You cannot come in at 2, 3, 4, 5. If there's 7 there, you have to go down to 7. And thankfully, they've also reinserted the possibility to have multiple entries, because they took it away in December and gave it back in April again. So the EMDN, they haven't published it yet. I've been told it's going to be published 100% before the date of application, so before May 26th. Now, EUDAMED, 6 main modules: actors, devices, certificates and notified bodies, vigilance, clinical investigations, and post-market surveillance. They're all huge. Clinical investigations, incidentally, is virtually double the size, and that's based on the high-level estimates we did, so it might actually be bigger, but it was virtually double the size of the devices. This is huge, absolutely huge. But on top of these 6 main modules, there's 14 horizontal modules. I'll give you an example of 2 of them. The notification system. We were expecting about 100,000 devices a day to be, or 100,000 emails a day to be sent from the notification system. The data exchange, every single operation you can do through the front end, adding, editing, deleting. Well, there's no real deletes in EUDAMED, but soft deletes, we'll say. You have to be able to do every single one of these through the data exchange, which means they have to be driven by XML. So the size of data exchange is absolutely huge. And this is one of the reasons why it was such an issue when we when they postponed it. So we already have the actors module. That's there. For those of you outside Switzerland and outside of Turkey, you can register now. Get in there. Your authorized rep has to register before the manufacturer for non-EU companies. But Q3, September is the latest date for the devices and certificates modules to go live. Now, I've had a look at the latest on the devices module, and it looks good. And I've seen all the new vigilance form, or not the vigilance forms, but the legacy device forms and things, and they look quite good. Vigilance, clinical investigations, post-market surveillance. The commissioner saying 2022, but I think that maybe closer to Q1 2022, they might actually start releasing some of the vigilance just to keep going with this phased approach. What's so special about EUDAMED? It's huge. Every single module is a project in itself. There's 3 ways of getting your data in: through the web, a bulk upload mechanism where you manually take your XML file and upload it, which is the one that I would recommend, by the way. There's also machine to machine, which is the creme de la creme side of it. From a nerdy point of view, it's very interesting, but it'll cost you at least 5,000 to 6,000 a year more than a bulk upload option where you manually take the files. And the manually taking of the files, you're allowed 300 entities per file. So for 15,000 UDIDIs, that's only 50 files. It wouldn't even take you an hour to upload them. And you save your 5,000 or 6,000 a year. So unless you have a huge overriding need for the machine to machine, I would keep away from it. The validation rules, the business rules, the XSD rules, the XML, it is complicated. There's a lot in there. Do not treat this in any other way than a change management program, because all the RAs, QAs, they need to understand it. The IT need to understand it. You all need to know exactly what data needs to go in, and you all need to be able to understand the same terms. There's no point in the IT guy talking to the RA and going, oh, this XML element collapsed because of A, B, and C. If the RA guy has no idea what they're talking about, it's going to be a very long conversation. So don't be afraid to get training on these things. We're estimating for the upload of the data, if you've about 20 UDIDIs, use the front end, use the manual entry. Anything over that, I would strongly recommend going to the XML, either the bulk upload or the machine to machine. But the machine to machine, like I said, is far more expensive. Your bulk upload and your machine to machine, they still require you to have some sort of software to create the XML. And there's a lot in this. We estimated that a basic system would cost companies about 150,000 to create themselves. So do not be afraid to outsource some of these things. The outsourcing could actually pay 10 plus years of it. And yeah, come talk to us, talk to our competitors, whichever. There's a lot of options out there. Now, the public access to the Eudamed data, devices, everything you enter in the devices is going to be public. The SSCPs, they're going to be uploaded by the notified bodies. So you'll ship them to the notified body, and then the latest information is the notified body will be the ones to upload them. For the clinical investigations, performance studies, and the market surveillance, there's going to be summaries, because there's a lot of confidential information in there. So there's only going to be summaries, and the commission are going to be very, very clear to you exactly which fields are going to be public. The only thing I warn you about the clinical investigations, vigilance, things like that, GDPR. Put nothing in there that could identify a patient in any way, shape, make, or form. Just be very careful of that. What you can do now, build your IT teams. Get your data together, start collating the data, build spreadsheets, or if you don't want to build spreadsheets, we supply templates for these. They take a lot of time to put together. Like I said, the MDR one has 20 tabs in it. The 20 tabs cover, I think it's about 104 fields, and then obviously you've got repeating things in there. Don't be afraid to invest in training. If you only study the commission released documents, it's going to take you weeks to get your head around it. Think about training, think about getting assistance in this. Prepare your basic UDIs, the UDIDI groups, and then start dragging in all the other bits of data from the marketing, from the R&D, or from the R&D, yeah. There's just so many bits of information all over the place. The spreadsheets, they're huge. We invested about 175 hours in getting ours together, and that was coming at it with a lot of knowledge. So repeating data, things like that, keep an eye on that. Do not underestimate Eudamed. Under any circumstances, don't underestimate it. You've done fantastic work in preparing for the regulations, getting everybody understanding MDR. Eudamed is the final piece. I'd be ashamed to fall down on it. Now, very quickly, I'm going to go back. Geez, I'm flying through this. I can normally drag this out another 10 minutes, but I'm not going to. So to go back to my original question, how bad can it be? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the screens here, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you the editing of a UDIDI. Here's one I entered for Aligned. Just to give you an idea of the level of fields that are involved in this. Now, this is our system. What we did with our system was we basically mimicked what the commission have. So all the fields that we have here, they're the same as you're going to get. So I'm going to go down, I'm not going to go down too slow, I'm not going to go down too fast. So UDIDI, issuing entities, you pick whichever. If you have another issuing entity, you'll enter that. The nomenclatures, you enter as many as you so wish. The same with the trade names. You could have multiple trade names in the same language. It's the only field in the entire system that's allowed multiples in the same language, but you can add unlimited trade names. It's up to you. Catalog and reference number, you have to add it. The URL for additional information. This is not mandatory, but it's the one field I would strongly suggest you use. This is free marketing. When someone's sitting beside their doctor and the doctor's explaining, well, this is the screen and this is what they're saying about this device. If the URL is sitting there, they can click on it and show all the pretty pictures that your marketing team have used to put together on the website and on your brochures. But if there's no link there, then they're stuck with just this straight data. And they might go look at somebody else's product. So use the URL, it's free. Is the device directly marked or not? It's got options on it. You can use the exact same as the UDIDI. You have to enter the quantity device. If you enter false, if it's one, you're fine. If you enter more than one, then you have to enter the unit of use DI. The production identifier, the additional descriptions, again, multiples on these. And a useless bit of information for the non-IT who don't know this, see these little slashes down at the bottom of the corner? If you're entering in these free text boxes, you can drag the box out and make it bigger. It's just a handy little tip. It's not something we did. It's part of the technology. Status, intended for EU market or not. The clinical sizes, these are limited depending on what you are entering. If it's a value, if it's a text. Text is the only one you can enter here. As you can see, the others are all blocked out. If it's the range, then you can do any one of the minimum, maximum, and the unit and type. Again, multiples. This is the big thing. And in your XML, you're going to build multiples of these things within the XML on the front end, or on your spreadsheets. You could have multiples of these. Label the single use, true or false. If it's maximum number of uses. Sterilization, label a sterile, containing latex rather. Your CMR substances, again, you can enter multiples of these, and you can then enter names of the substances, multiples of the name of the substance in the different languages. Same for the endocrine, again, multiples. Storage and handling conditions, there's a lot. And again, multiples. Critical warnings, multiples again. Then you've got some Boolean fields. Your Annex 16, obviously you've got a list to pick from. If it's designed by another manufacturer or natural person, you can enter the SRN. If you don't enter the SRN, then you have to enter all the details. And again, you can have multiple abbreviated names, multiple full names in different languages. So you can see how your spreadsheets would build up. You can see how your data would build up. It becomes quite big. Then you've got the markets. What markets are you available in? Your packaging, multiple container types. This gives you an idea. And I'm just going to slowly go up again. This gives you an idea of how bad EUDAMED can be. And this is only one of the legacy device UDIDIs. This isn't the basic UDI. It's not the full MDR one, which is even more fields. So in answer to the question, if you prepare properly, if you get all your data together and you're ready to go bang in September when the thing goes live and you pile your data in, then you're good. You're good to go. If you wait till the end, your teams are going to be stressed. It's going to be a nightmare, and you will end up with this type of an approach, which we would all rather avoid if we could. Now, links, everything I've referred to from the legacy device, the nomenclature, to our free generator, they're all here. My contact details, I'd strongly recommend connecting to me on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn, anything new that comes from the commission, I upload it very, very quickly. Sometimes I'll have it uploaded before they'll have it uploaded to the second parts of the site where they deliver it. Carl, I'm finished 10 seconds early.
Very good.
That's timing for you.
That is timing, exactly. So I have a number of questions here for you, and you will have to let me know if this falls into your area of competence. So the first one is about EU representative. Is an EU representative and official importer already necessary for products used in clinical investigations in EU member states? I think this is about if you're a Swiss manufacturer.
Oh, I'm not 100% sure on that one. That's more of a regulatory thing. That one I can't answer.
Fine with me.
Sorry.
Here you get the next one. Again, for Switzerland, is an EC rep required to sell EU Class 1 MDD products that would be upclassified under MDR and therefore can profit from the grace period?
If it depends what's going to happen in the next few weeks. I mean, the commission are going to issue guidance on probably the last date that on the date of application, but there's ongoing discussions. But if the commission agree to it, then you could. But the whole thing is up in the air. I don't know what's wrong with both sides, that they're not talking a lot. They've had plenty of time to discuss it. But for this, you will have to wait until the guidance is issued. Sorry.
Yeah, we're very frustrated on this side of the fence as well.
I can imagine
why nothing happens. More on this topic, and again, you let me know if this is within your.
Okay.
What would be the modules for new products beyond legacy devices and for software as medical devices?
You're going to have the vigilance, post-market surveillance, possibly. Actually, hopefully, you won't have the vigilance, but it'll be open to you. Again, everything in EUDAMED is connected. So if you have to run a clinical investigation, it will be there. If you have a vigilance issue, it connects back to the device. The UDIDI is still the central point. And from there, all the modules build around it, if that helps.
Yes, probably. Should implementable medical devices class 2A, should they have a UDI before end of May, in your opinion?
Would you believe I actually have all the dates on it? 1 second, I open this. Can you see that on your screen?
Yes, I can. There you go.
So,
yeah, that's a clear
and Class 2B, 26th of May, 2023. Well, they're the implementation dates. I know that the basic UDIs have to be there from, I think it's 26th of May, 21. But again, you will save yourself a lot of stress if you do these things nice and gradually, rather than waiting for the last minute. There was a system put live by the Commission several years ago, CPMP. It was to track the ingredients of the perfumes and things like that. It went live, nobody touched it. 4 weeks before the final date for getting things in, everybody piled in at the same time, and there was a lot of stress. You've 80,000 companies. You've over 2 million devices that are all going to have to be put in here. And then you have the regulation devices, because the regulation and the directive ones will be kind of going in simultaneously in some cases. That could cause issues. So if you want a sniff of support, just the tiniest little bit of support from the Commission, I would strongly advise getting everything in there with UDIDIs and everything else by September. Say October, November, but get it in at the beginning, because that is the only time that an IT team will be watching this carefully. Once they move on to the next modules, then the 2 people in that support team, they will answer most of your questions, and it will take you weeks to get responses. So I would advise early adoption if you can.
That's a straight advice. 2 more questions. Here is somebody who is in a situation of despair, maybe. He says, certain competent authorities refuse to give an SRN because they say procedure packer system, packer registration in EUDAMED has no legal base under the EU MDR. What do I need to do?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this situation?
I have the same problem. I am, one of the things we do is we register companies, and I'm obviously registering them all over Europe. And some competent authorities, bang, like that, overnight, you're validated. On December 1st, I was up in the middle of the night filling in a lot of these registrations because I wanted my clients to get up there as quickly as possible. Some of those things that I put in December 1st are still sitting there. There's some of the German competent authorities, the Polish, or no, not the Polish, the Italians. They're all saying, no, we're not touching it before the date of application. And there's nothing you can do. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Until the competent authority push that little validate button, you're not getting your SRN. Now, EUDAMED generates the SRN, but it requires the competent authority to push the button. And some of them have quite clearly said they are not doing it before the 26th of May, 2021.
Wow.
And you know, I remember being in some of the working groups with some of these people, and they were complaining that, oh, when everybody turns up, we're going to be overrun. We only had, initially they only had that window between March 26th and May 26th, 2020. And within that 3 months, they were going to have to validate everybody. And they say, oh, we're having to hire all these people and we have to get prepared. And now everything is up early. They're going, hey, we're not touching it. So
wow.
It's frustrating for all of us.
Yeah, but in that case, this is not a unique situation for this person.
No.
You have run into the same situation. There is not a lot you can do.
Many times.
All right. Is there any difference for IVD products?
I haven't noticed that one yet. I haven't. It's just a blanket saying no for certain competent authorities. But there is the possibility. I would still fill in the form now and have it sitting there. But there is the possibility that they might say there's no basis for the IVDD.
Yeah. No, I was more referring to like IVD products in general and EUDAMED. EUDAMED doesn't make a big difference between medical devices and IVD products, does it?
The only difference between them is a few fields. That's it.
And you cater for that in your forms, I assume.
Yeah.
Very good. So for the listeners out there, we've talked a lot about EUDAMED today. And Richard, by coincidence, is also head of a company called EUDAMED. As
luck would have it.
Yeah, maybe you want to elaborate on that naming there.
The 2016, I'm sitting in my little office in Brussels, and I'm preparing the teams for what we're going doing with EUDAMED. And I went to check the domain names just out of curiosity. Now, I wasn't running the whole project. I was over the technical teams. And the domain names were sitting there. The .eu, the .com, the .net. So I thought, hey, I'll take those, because I'd made my decision back in 2011, or 2012 actually, that I was going to create this company to do the consultancy, etc. And why not? Nobody else was using them. The commission aren't allowed to use them because they have to keep their corporate image through this EC Europa, so they're not allowed to use them. So I thought, why not? Companies are going to be looking for help on EUDAMED, so why not just go straight with that? So that was the background to it. We're in place since 2017, 2018. I've been doing it full time since April 2019. There's a team of about 7 of us. We're building a support team in Bulgaria as well. Currently, I'm sitting in sunny Ireland, looking out at blue skies. It's unusual to have a blue sky, so it's a good day. And our offices are in Bulgaria. We've representation in Brussels as well. And if anybody needs anything to do with EUDAMED.
Yeah, I hope this is very clear to everybody now that Richard is your go-to guy when it is about EUDAMED. If you have a EUDAMED problem or EUDAMED question, reach out to Richard. He knows the answer. Just finish off with the last question. If you upload information into EUDAMED and then you realize that, oh, I uploaded an incorrect statement or did something incorrect, what possibilities do I have to correct that or modify or edit that?
Potentially you're in trouble because there's no actual deletes from EUDAMED. Mm-hmm. What you can do, when you upload first, it goes into the submitted state. Mm-hmm. When the connection is made with the certificate, and it's an automated thing. As soon as the certificate is uploaded, it's automated, it goes to registered. But the problem is, it could always be a case where the certificate is uploaded first. So as soon as you upload the device, it's considered registered. In those points, there is a very small window where you can update certain fields. But if you notice it too late and it goes fully registered, goes to the public site, then you're done. That information stays. What I would strongly suggest for anybody who's doing anything with the XML is get access to the training site. Someone mentioned earlier a sandbox. They don't actually have a sandbox for Eudamed as such, but they have a training area which they're hiding the URL for at the moment. But once you're ready to go uploading XML, you apply exact same process as you went through for registering in the first place. You have to do it again on this other site, but get access to that. Upload all your XML there. Keep uploading it. Any errors you make, so what? Nobody gets to see it. Make sure that your data is correct before you go anywhere near production, at least for the first few runs, until you're confident and until you're 100% sure. But the problem is, if you create a major mistake and this is then fully registered and you cannot take it back off Eudamed, the only possibility you have is to create a new version and take it off the market, discontinue it completely. But then it creates a bigger issue for you because your UDIDI is now no longer usable. You have to go through that whole process of creating the whole new UDIDI and all the mess that creates. So make sure there's no mistakes first.
And this is intentional by design? Or is it just a consequence of the complex technology?
It's a consequence of decisions that were made by the Commission. That's pretty much it. I mean, one of the things they couldn't do was to have devices going into Eudamed, maybe spending 6 months in there and suddenly being deleted, because that takes away from the whole spirit of the regulation, because the regulation is to track from inception, design, investigation to death, all the way through. So you couldn't have the case where some spurious manufacturers might suddenly delete a device just to hide it and get away with the lawsuits. So once it's in there and it's fully registered, you're done. Even when you create second versions and third versions of these devices within Eudamed, there's very few fields you can actually edit. There are very, very few of them. So just be so careful before you put your data anywhere near Eudamed. It's not like a normal system where you can highlight the box and click delete and off you go. Not going to happen.
I see.
Sorry.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. That was a great session. I encourage everybody to connect with Richard on LinkedIn and take a look at the content that he's producing, because he's very active on LinkedIn. Every week there is a new post from him with important and insightful information about Eudamed. So head over there, get connected with Richard, and get your Eudamed for the day.
Thanks very much, Carl.
Thank you.
See you.
See you.